Okay, we're going to factor this completely, and there's a GCF there. And 4 can go into both of those, and we look at the x, the smaller exponent is 4. So we have 4x to the 4 that can come out, and that leaves behind, 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, minus 3x. Okay, between these three terms, 9 is the biggest number that can go into all of them. And then when we look at the a's, we have a 3, a 3, and a 4. 3 is the least, so I'll put a 3. When we look at the b's, we have a 3, a 3, and a 5. 3 is the least. When we look at the c's, we have a 4, a 3, and a 3. 3 is the least. So that's what comes out. And then that leaves behind a 3 because 9 times 3 is 27. And the only thing that we need to put here is a c to get the c to the 4th. And we have a minus 2 because 9 times 2 is 15. And all the variables are accounted for, so we don't need a variable. And then we'll put a plus 4 because 9 times 4 is 36. And we need an a to get to a to the 4th. We need a b squared, and that's it. Okay, here we have two terms. The common factor is x minus 5, so we'll pull that out, and then we're left with this plus this. So we're left with x plus 7 plus x plus 2. And this combines to 2x plus 9. So our answer is x minus 5 times 2x plus 9. Here we have two terms separated by a minus. Our common factor is 3x minus 2, so we'll pull that out. And then we're left with this minus this. And be careful, that negative is going to distribute through those. So we're going to have 2x minus 7 minus x minus 1. That's going to become minus. That's the most common mistake. And then this combines to x minus 8. And this stays the same. Okay, there's 4 terms here, so I'm going to factor by grouping. I'll group these two together as if they're a separate problem and pull out an a. And we're going to have a plus c. So I'll leave a big space and I'm going to put a plus c down again. Then I'll think about what I have to put here, so when I distribute, I get back to that. And it's a plus b. So my common factor is an a plus c, and I'm leaving behind a plus b. Again, I have 4 terms, so I'm going to factor by grouping. I'll group these two together as if they're a separate problem, and I'll pull out a 2x. And that leaves behind 3x minus a. So I'm going to leave a big space, and I'm going to put 3x minus a down again. Then I'll think about what I put here so that when I distribute, I get to 3xy and ay. And it looks like a positive y. So this is my common factor, and that comes out. And I'm left with this plus that. Again, I have 4 terms, so I'm going to factor by grouping. I'll group these two together as if they're a separate problem, and I'll pull out a 4x. And that leaves behind a 2a minus 3b. So I'm going to leave a big space and put 2a minus 3b down immediately, because I know whatever I leave behind here, I have to leave there. Then I'll think about what goes here so that when I multiply, I get back to those. And it looks like a negative 3y. And just double check. That times that is that, and that times that is that. So here's my common factor, and I'm going to pull that out, 2a minus 3b. And I'm left with 4x minus 3y. Again, I have 4 terms, so I'm going to factor by grouping. I'll take those first two, and I see a 5x in common. So I pull that out, and it leaves a 4x plus 3a. So I'll leave a big space, and I'll put 4x plus 3a down again. And then I'll think about what I have to put here so that when I distribute, I get back to a negative 8bx and a negative 6by. So it looks like a negative 2b. Just double check that it works. Negative 2b times this is that. Negative 2b times that is that. So here's my common factor, the 4x plus 3y, and that's going to come out, or 3a, excuse me. And it leaves behind 5x minus 2b. Okay, when there's no leading coefficient, all you're doing is looking for factors of this that add up to the middle number. So positive 4 and positive 3. And we're done. X plus 4 and x plus 3. There's no leading coefficient, so we're just looking for numbers here that add up to negative 8. So negative 5 and negative 3 multiply to 15 but add up to negative 8. So we have x minus 5 and x minus 3. Again, we have no leading coefficient, so we're looking for factors of negative 24 that add up to negative 2. So 6 and 4 are factors of 24, but one's got to be positive and one's negative. We have to make the 6 negative and this positive, because when we add them up, we have to get to negative 2, not positive 2. And these have to multiply to negative 24. So here we're done. X minus 6 and x plus 4. Now, before we try to do anything here, let's just take out the GCF. It makes the problem a lot easier. So I take out a 4, and I'm left with x squared plus 1x minus 30. Now, this has no leading coefficient. So I'm just looking for factors of negative 30 that add up to positive 1. Well, factors of 30 that have a difference of 1, and it's a difference because if this is negative, these have to have opposite signs. And when you add opposite signs together, you're actually subtracting. That's why you're thinking of a difference. And the 6 has to be positive, and the 5 has to be negative, because we have to add up to a positive 1, not a negative 1. So now we're done. Don't forget about the 4. But then we have x plus 6 and x minus 5. Because there's no leading coefficient, I'm simply looking for factors of 48 that add up to negative 2. But if this is negative, we're actually looking for a difference because these must have opposite signs. So I'm looking for 8 and 6 because that gives us a difference of 2. Now the 8 has to be negative and the 6 has to be positive because we have to add up to a negative 2. And this, of course, will multiply to negative 48. So we have x minus 8 and x plus 6. Again, there's no leading coefficient, so we're looking for factors of this 40 that are going to add up to 14. So 10 and 4. And again, we're looking to add, because this is positive, these have to have the same sign. And when you add them together, you're actually adding and not subtracting. And don't forget about your y. So you're going to, like, to get to y, we have that'll get to y squared. So we have a x plus 10y and x plus 4y. There's no leading coefficient, so we're looking for factors of 36 that add up to 15. It's 12 and 3, but let's say you didn't see that. Then just start doing this. 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 5 doesn't go in, 6 and 6, and we're done. And we're looking for whichever pair adds up to 15. This adds up to 37, to 20, there we are, 15. And they both have to be positive, because we've got to add up to positive 15. And so we have x plus 3 and x plus 12. Now, honestly, most of the time you don't need to do this. You could probably just see it, but sometimes you just got to list all the factors. There's no leading coefficient, so we're looking for factors, because this is negative, that are going to give us a difference of 6. And if you're not sure, just write them out. So this is 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. But remember, these have to have opposite signs because this is negative. So we're actually subtracting to get to 6. And there are no factor pairs that subtract to get to 6. So this cannot be factored. And this is prime. Okay, there's a lot of ways to do this, but I'm going to show you something factor by grouping method. So 2 times, I'll multiply these out here together and get 2 times 4 is 8. Then I'm looking for factors of 8 that add up to 9. So 1 and 8. So then I'll rewrite this as 1x plus 8x. That's my 9. And then I can factor this by grouping. I'll take out an x, and that leaves me with 2x plus 1. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put 2x plus 1 down again. Then I'll think about what has to go here so that when I distribute, I get back to those. And it's a positive 4. So now I take my common factor of 2x plus 1. That's my common factor. And it leaves behind x plus 4. And if you get confused, you can always FOIL this out and make sure it gets back to the original. Okay, because there's this leading coefficient, I'm going to take the product of my outer numbers and get positive 30. Because this is positive, I'm looking for numbers factors of this that add up to 17. If you're not sure, list them out. The answer is 15 and 2, but if you didn't see it, just start 1 and 30, 2 and 15, and stop when you get to a sum of 17, which we just did. These both got to be negative to add to negative 17, but multiply to 30. So now I'm going to rewrite this number as negative 2x minus 15x plus 5. And these two numbers are based off of those. But now I can factor by grouping. I take a 2x out of those. And I'm left with a 3x minus 1. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put 3x minus 1 again. Then I'll think about what I have to put here so that when I distribute, I get back to those, and it's negative 5. So my 3x plus 1 is what I have in common, or 3x minus 1, and that leaves behind 2x minus 5. Okay, because there's a leading coefficient, I'm going to multiply my outer two numbers together and get negative 60. I'm looking for factor pairs that add up to negative 4, but because this is negative, one's positive, one's negative, I'm actually looking to subtract to get to 4. I guess the answer is 10 and 6. If you don't see 10 and 6, just start listing them. 1 and 60 gives us 59, 2 and 30, that's 28, 3 and 20, that's 57, 4 and 15, that's 11, 5 and 12, that's 7, 6 and 10, that's 4. Unfortunately, it was the last factor pair possible. But we got to put a positive on the 10 and a negative on the 6 because these have to add up to positive 4, not negative 4. And they have to multiply to that. So this is the factor pair that we're after. So I'm going to rewrite the middle term like that. So I have 4x squared minus 6x plus 10x minus 15. Let me give myself some room here. Okay. And then I'm going to group these two as if they're a separate problem. And I'll take out a 2x. And that leaves behind a 2x minus 3. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put 2x minus 3 down again because whatever I leave here, I have to leave back here. Then I'll think about what goes there, so when I distribute, I get back to those. And it's a plus 5. So 2x minus 3 is common, and that comes out. And it leaves behind 2x plus 5. If you get confused, FOIL this and make sure you get back to that. Okay, so we have we have a leading coefficient here, so I'm going to multiply these two numbers together to give myself negative 12. Because it's negative, I'm looking for factors that give me a difference of 11. So that's pretty obvious. It's negative 12 and positive 1. So I'll rewrite this as negative 12x plus 1x, then minus 3. Those are my 11 based off of those numbers. Then I'm going to factor these two as if they're a separate problem, and I'll take out a 4x. And that leaves behind x minus 3. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put x minus 3 down again. Then I'll think about what number, including the sign, that I need to put here that I distribute to get back to that. And that's just a plus 1. So my common factor is x minus 3, and that's what comes out. And that leaves behind 4x plus 1. Because I have this leading coefficient, I'm going to multiply my outer two numbers to get a positive 35. And I'm looking for factors that add up to 2. Well, I think it should be pretty obvious. Well, the only factors of 35 are 1 and 35 and 5 and 7. This adds up to 36. This adds up to 12. There's no way we're going to add up to a small number like 2. So this is prime. And you probably could have guessed that this was prime without doing much of this work, because as soon as you see a big product out here and a small number, and as long as this is a positive product, you know you're adding to this, it's not possible. Okay, because we have this leading coefficient, I'm going to multiply these two numbers together and I'll get positive 36. Because it's positive, I know my factors have to add up to this middle number. If you don't see it right off the bat, it's 9 and 4, but if you don't see it, just start listing your numbers. 1 and 36, that adds up to 37. 2 times 18, that adds up to 20. 3 times 12, that adds up to 15. 4 times 9, that adds up to 13, and there we are. So I'm going to stop right there. The only other factors are 6 and 6, but I didn't need to show it. Negative 4 and negative 9 multiply to positive 36, but add up to this. So I'm going to rewrite this number with those in mind. So minus 4x minus 9x plus 6. These numbers add up to my negative 13, and I got it from there. So now I'll group those two together, and I'll take out a 2x. And that leaves behind a 3x minus 2. So I'll leave a big space, and I'll put 3x minus 2 down again. And then I'll think about what I have to put here so that I distribute to get back to those. And it looks like a negative 3. So my common factor between these two terms is 3x minus 2, and I'll pull that out. And that leaves behind this 2x minus 3. If you get confused, FOIL this and make sure you get back to the original. Okay, because we have this leading coefficient, I'm going to multiply my outer two numbers and get a positive 24. Because it's positive, I'm looking for factors that add up to 10. So it's 6 and 4. But let's say you didn't see that. I'd go 1 and 24, add up to 25. 2 and 12, add up to 14. 3 and 8, add up to 11. 4 and 6, and there we are. So positive, positive. Those are the numbers we're after. So I'll rewrite this. Plus 4x plus 6x plus 6. These are my 10x, and it's based off of that. Now I'm going to group these two together, and I'll pull out a 4x. And that leaves behind a 2x plus 1. So I'll just leave a big space, and I'll put 2x plus 1 down again, because I have to leave the same thing behind. Then I'll think about what I have to put here so that when I distribute it, I get back to that. I just noticed I had a mistake. This is a 3, and I somehow wrote a 6 there. That's a mistake, so let me change that. I'm sorry if that confused you. But that should be a plus 3. So now I'm looking to multiply to get back to that, and it looks like a plus 3. Just double check that it works. 3 times this is 6x, 3 times that is 3. So here's my common factor of 2x plus 1, and that's what comes out. And it leaves behind 4x plus 3. Okay, this has a leading coefficient, so I'm going to multiply those two numbers together and get negative 12. So I'm looking for factors. Now, because this is negative, I'm actually looking to find factors that give me a difference of 11. So the first factor is 1 and 12, and sure enough, that gives us a difference of 11, so I'm going to stop. I'm not going to write anymore. Now, I have to put the positive on the 12 and the negative on the 1 because I need to add up to a positive 11, not a negative 11. So now let's write this middle term with those in mind. So I have 6x squared minus 1x plus 12x minus 2. These are my 11x that I got from those there. I'm going to factor those two first, and I'll pull out an x, and that leaves behind 6x minus 1. So now I'll leave a big space and put 6x minus 1 again, because whatever you leave behind here, you have to leave behind there. Then I'll think about what do you have to put here so that when you distribute, you get back to those. It looks like a plus 2. So my common factor in each of these terms is 6x minus 1, and it leaves behind an x plus 2. Okay, because of this leading coefficient, I'm going to multiply the 12 times the coefficient of 1. 12 times 1 is positive 12. I'm looking for factors, because it's positive, that add up to 7. So 3 and 4. So positive 3 and positive 4, don't forget the b. Okay, so this will rewrite, as, actually let's leave off this b, that makes it confusing. Okay, but this will rewrite as 12a squared plus 3ab, because we got to use that same variable, plus 4ab plus b squared. And these two numbers add up to our 7ab, and we got those from that. So now I'll group those two and take out a 3a. That leaves behind a 4a plus b. And I'll leave a big space, and I'll put 4a plus b down again. And then I'll think about what I need to put here so that when I distribute, I get to 4ab and b squared. So it's a positive b. So my common factor is 4a plus b. And it leaves behind 3a plus b. Okay, because of this leading coefficient, I'm going to multiply my two numbers together and get 24. Now, this is a positive 24, so my factors have to add to 11. If it's 8 and 3, but if you don't see that, let's just go 1 and 24, that adds up to 25. 2 and 12, that adds up to 14. 3 and 8, and that adds up to 11, so that's what we're after. They both have to be negative because we have to multiply to a positive but add to a negative. So now we'll rewrite that as 12x squared z squared minus 3xz, just use the same variable, minus 8xz plus 2. And I'm going to group these first two together as if they're a separate problem and take out a 3xz. And let's do this so I don't get confused. Okay, so that leaves behind a 4xz minus 1. So I'm going to leave a big space, and I'll put 4xz minus 1 down again. Then I'll think about what I have to put here so that when I distribute, I get back to negative 8xz and a positive 2. And it looks like a negative 2 is what's needed here. Just double check that it works. Negative 2 times positive 4xz is a negative 8xz, and negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. So this is my common factor, and that comes out front. 4xz minus 1, and it leaves behind 3xz minus 2. Now, honestly, I can do the same thing here, 25 times 4 to get 100, but 100 is pretty big, and I'm noticing that this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square. So I might have a perfect square here. Actually, you know what? I'll save that lesson for later. Let's just multiply this out. So 25 times 4 is 100. It's a positive 100. I'm looking for factors of 100 that add up to 20. So negative 10 and negative 10 add up to 20. So I'll rewrite this. I have 25x squared minus 10x minus 10x plus 4. These are add to that, and I got them from that. So now I'll group those first two together and pull out a 5x. That leaves behind a 5x minus 2. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put 5x minus 2 down again. Then I'll think about what I put here so that I distribute and I get back to those. So it looks like a negative 2. So this is my common factor. So I'll pull that out, 5x minus 2, and I'll be left with 5x minus 2. Well, probably the simplest way to write this, because we're taking something and multiplying it by itself, is to just square that item. So 5x minus 2 squared is more simplified than that. Number 28 at first glance looks like a nightmare problem because 8 times 16 is such a large number. But all of these are divisible by 4. So let's take out the GCF first. I'm going to give myself some blocker there. So, and now we have a 2x squared plus 18x. Wait a minute, what did I do? Plus 4 times 9. What am I? Plus 9x plus 4. And now this is a much more manageable problem. When I multiply these two together, I get a positive. I'm looking for factors of 8 that add up to 9. And we can stop right there. So we have 4 times 2x squared plus 1x plus 8x plus 4. These two numbers make our 9x, and they came from that. So now I'll group these two together, and I'll factor out an x. And I'm left with 2x plus 1. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put 2x plus 1 down again. And then I'll think about what I put here so that I distribute and get to 8x plus 4. That's a positive 4. So here's my common factor, and that comes out 2x plus 1. And it's leaving behind x plus 4, but just be very careful. Don't forget that 4 that's sitting there. You'll get the problem wrong. So the answer is 4 times 2x plus 1 times x plus 4. Okay, this problem looks like a mess, but notice that this is recurring. So I can simplify that by saying something like a equals 2x plus 3. And now what I have is a squared plus 6a plus 8. And this is an easy problem to factor because I don't have a leading coefficient here, so I'm just looking for factors of 8 that add up to 6. So positive 4 and positive 2. So this is a plus 4 times a plus 2. The problem is our original problem doesn't have a, so now I have to resubstitute this a with 2x plus 3. So what I've got is 2x plus 3 plus that 4 times my a, which is 2x plus 3 plus that 2. And I'll simplify this and get 2x plus 7. And I'll simplify this and get 2x plus 5. Okay, notice again we have a recurring element x plus 1. So I'm going to say something like a is equal to x plus 1. And now what we have is 6a squared minus 11a minus 10. This is a little tougher because I do have a leading coefficient. I have to multiply them together and we get negative 60. I'm looking for factors, because it's negative, I'm looking for factors that give me a difference of 11. So if you see 4 and 15 right off the bat, great. And if you don't, just take 1 goes into 60 times, but that gives us a difference of 59. 2 and 30 gives us a difference of 28. 3 and 10 give us a difference of 7. 4 and 15 give us a difference of 11, so I'll stop right there. And I've got to put the negative on the 15 and the positive on the 4 because they have to add up to a negative 11, not a positive 11. So these multiply to negative 60, but they add up to negative 11. So now I'll rewrite this as, let me give myself some room here. So we have 6a squared plus 4a minus 15a minus 10. And I'll group these two together as if they're a separate problem and factor out a 2a. And that leaves behind a 3a plus a 2. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put 3a plus 2 down again. Then I'll think about what I have to put here so that I distribute and I get back to those. Looks like a negative 5. So now my common factor is 3a plus 2, and I'm left with 2a minus 5. The problem is I can't stop here because there's no a in the original problem. So now I have to take this a and replace it with x plus 1. So what I have in my first parentheses is 3 times a, which is x plus 1, plus that 2, times 2 times a, which is x plus 1, minus the 5. And when I distribute this, I'm running out of room here, but I'm going to get 3x plus 3, and I still have that plus 2. When I distribute this, I'm going to get 2x plus 2, but I still have that minus 5. Finally, this simplifies to 3x plus 5, and this simplifies to 2x minus 3. Okay, we have a leading coefficient, so I'm going to multiply these two together and I'll get negative 48. Because it's negative, I'm looking for factors that give me a difference of 2. So 6 and 8. Let's say you didn't see 6 and 8. So you just go 1 and 48, that's 47. 2 and 24, that's 22. 3 and 16, that's 13. 4 and 12, that's 8. 5 doesn't go into it. 6 times 8 is 48, and we'll stop right there because that gives us our difference of 2. It's a positive 2, so we have to put the plus on the 8 and the negative on the 6. And these are what's going to multiply to negative 48, but add to positive 2. So now I'll rewrite this. I'll give myself some room here. So we have 16x to the 4 minus 6x squared, just use that same variable, plus 8x squared minus 3. And these numbers add up to our negative 2, but we got them from that. Now, I'll group these two as a separate problem, and it looks like I can take out a 2x squared. That makes this an 8x squared minus 3. That distributes to that. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put down 8x squared minus 3 again. Then I'll think about what I have to put here so that I can distribute and get to that. So it's a plus 1. So my final answer, my common factor is 8x minus 3, and that's what comes out, or 8x squared minus 3, and I'm left with 2x squared plus 1. Okay, because I have a leading coefficient, I multiply them together and I get positive 16. And I'm looking for factors, because it's positive, that add up to 17, so that's pretty easy. Positive 16 and positive 1. So I'll rewrite that. Now 16x squared plus 16x plus 1x plus 1. These are my numbers that add up to 17x, and they came from those over there. So I'll group these two together by taking out a 2x, and that leaves behind, oh, not a 2x, a 16x. That leaves behind an x plus 1. So I'll leave a big space and I'll put x plus 1 down again. So this is obviously just a plus 1. So my common factor is x plus 1, and it leaves behind 16x plus 1. And that's it.